Dear President of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Borut Pahor, dear Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Marjan Šarec, dear Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the business representatives, welcome to the 3Cs Initiative Business Forum, and warmly welcome to Slovenia, the only country in the world with love in its name. As stands in Slovenia's logo, there's plenty of love for green, for creative, for smart. And during this 2 days event, we will be hearing why these are so important for all of us, since they connect with transport, digital, energy, and innovation.
For warming up this panel, I prepared only really very few slides, which I call Game of Maps. So this is 3Cs initiative, initiated in 2015, has priority infrastructure projects, not solid structure yet, but hopefully it will come. This is a map of projects of common interest. It's a European project of defining which infrastructure is of a supranational importance, and you see that our region, if I call it like that, 3Cs initiative region, is mostly red. This means gas projects, gas interconnectors. The rest of Europe, more developed part of Europe, is full of blue. This is about electricity, and this is one of the things that makes our region similar. We have some similarities, and we can call ourselves an energy region, but this energy region, of course, needs a solid structure. This one is supported by EU with co-financing of infrastructure projects. And what are projects or infrastructure projects of common interest? Electricity, no doubt, oil infrastructure in the past a little bit, but the definition develops through the time. Smart grids were introduced later, CCS projects, and gas from the early beginning, but now also gas definition is changing in EU. In the past it was only about natural gas and LNG. Now it is also about blue methane, synthetic gas, green methane, and hydrogen. European Union right these days, together with Japan, is launching an initiative, still waiting on support from United States, about the hydrogen as a basis for decarbonized energy, because industrial processes at least need some heavy fuel oil, if I can call it so, and this hydrogen is. This region, our region, is also part of so-called 16+1 initiative. Okay, now it's 17+1 with Austria, which was launched by China in 2012. Also providing some financing, plus including 5 Western Balkan countries. And if I go further on with similarities, majority of our region has problems with too much coal or oil shale in electricity generation. A majority of our region has low or lower liquidity gas markets. Gas is now there. Our region has something in common as well, and this is situation in the past, and later I will tell you in the future. 16,000 years before Christ, this area, or these 3Cs initiative countries, didn't have sea at all. Black Sea was Black Lake, the others didn't have access to the sea, including Croatia. Climate changes are happening, wish it or not. This was in the past. This is hopefully not future, how Earth would look like if all the ice melted. There would be too much of seas. Some countries from this initiative wouldn't exist anymore. There is a greeting from Port of Houston, if I can say so. And that's all for the introduction. Next slide is about summary, but summary needs your input. And I would like to inspire all today's speakers to talk about future challenges related to new definition of infrastructure in a decarbonized area. Allow me to invite today's host, Slovenian Deputy Prime Minister Alenka Bratušek, to share with us her 5D vision for a 5G world of the future. Alenka, my colleague in the past, was Prime Minister during worst economic crisis in Slovenia in modern history, and she saved us from Greek scenario, and we shall all be thankful to her, and I believe she has a lot to tell us about her vision. And of course the second, a very special guest whose inspiring speeches I often recycle and whom I like because he always says international cooperation first. I hope I will not make you any problems back in Washington DC. United States Secretary of Energy, Mr. Rick Perry. But today Slovenia is the first. Alenka, please, the floor is yours.
I hope that after this interesting panel you will have time to see some natural beauties of Slovenia and try our excellent food and wine. Only then will you find out why Slovenia is the only country in the world that carries the word love in its own name. I will be bold and say that I believe climate neutral society is a fact. Climate neutral society is the new paradigm, and even if one might personally disagree with this, it is unstoppable. Climate neutral society is the new paradigm, and even if one might personally disagree with this, it is unstoppable. However, the vision we as decision makers offer as the way to the future must be realistic, taking into account our borderline abilities. Soon it will be 50 years from the Club of Rome report on limits to growth. That report was the first milestone where we have identified that our way of living puts an enormous strain on securing the survival of humanity and the environment as we know it. We have done a lot since then, but I will be the devil's advocate and tell you that we have only picked the low-hanging fruits so far. I'm sure that now it's time to climb the tree. Thank you for your attention, and don't forget that you are in the most beautiful country in the world, and this country, our beautiful Slovenia, is the only one that carries the word love in its own name. You should find out why.
We're ready, we're willing, and we're able to help other nations increase that diversity by expanding their energy choices. As I've noticed, I should say as I've noted many times, through a cascade of innovation, the United States is producing energy more abundantly, more affordably, more sustainably, more cleanly and efficiently, and from a wider range of sources than anyone ever thought possible. As a result, we now export our LNG to 35 countries on 5 continents, including Europe, and we are about to become a net energy exporter as well. We offer unprecedented energy choices for the world, especially for our trading partners and our friends. For such countries, choice means this: if they were restricted to just one source for their energy needs, they're restricted no more. And so we offer not just our LNG, but our civil nuclear technologies. It means that that you're not bound to just one nation for those needs. You're bound no more by that. And so we offer ourselves as a competitive alternative to the Russian Federation. It means that if they were compelled to depend on just one energy route for those needs, they are compelled no more. And so we support multiple routes to deliver energy across Europe. Along with energy choice, we support free and open markets, the rule of law, the sanctity of contracts. We uphold the transparency of energy deals. We oppose using energy to coerce any country, and we remain rock-solid, reliable suppliers of every fuel that we provide. For these reasons, we believe that obtaining energy resources and technology from the United States is a highly attractive choice for any nation, certainly for our friends here in Europe. And for that same reason, we oppose the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline as well as the Turkish Stream counterpart. It would supply a single source of supply from a single country providing that supply, using a single route to deliver that supply deep into the heart of Europe. And yet, despite the threat that this project represents, I believe there is strong cause for optimism on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm delighted to see a number of European nations taking tangible steps towards increasing their energy diversity. I'm encouraged by Germany's decision last year to reduce its dependence on a single supplier by agreeing to purchase LNG, including LNG from the United States, and by its announcement this March that it would move forward with the financing of 2 import terminals. I applaud the step by Lithuania to build a floating storage and regasification unit. It's good to see Poland expanding its LNG terminal, reducing its natural gas imports from Russia, increasing its LNG exports from other nations, including the United States. Other European nations are also expanding their existing terminals, and they're building new ones as well. And let me add that the United States is exporting its LNG to nearly every country in Europe which has such a terminal. And that we now have 4 export projects in operation in our own country, with 3 more that are soon to come online, 2 that are set, I think, later this year, and 1 that will be finished by 2025. I'm encouraged by the Southern Gas Corridor, which will help southern Central Europe diversify its gas supply with 10 billion cubic meters per year of gas from Azerbaijan and the Caspian region as well. So I believe it's absolutely essential that Europe prioritize these kinds of energy projects that strengthen the ties that bind our countries together rather than drive wedges between us.
We are fully orientated to the diversification, of course, as a very important tool of achieving the energy independence of the European continent, and especially the 3 Seas initiative countries. Having that in mind, the Croatia did all we could in the period of the 2 last years in order to come to the situation in which we are right now, and that is the situation in which we can say that the building of the LNG terminal on the island Kirk is in progress. We expect this terminal to be finished until the end of 2020. So in January 2021, the first gas will go from this terminal to the north, we expect. Of course, the capacity of the terminal is 2.6 BCM, and we expect that the countries around Croatia, especially the countries on the north, are going to be interested in booking the capacity in the next period of time. Except this project, when speaking about the diversification, and let me refer to the words of Mr. Perry, the diversification of the supply as one of the most important, let's say, agendas of the EU. We are very much interested in realization of the EA project, Ionic Adriatic Pipeline, and its connection to the TAP-TANAP pipeline in the point of Fier in Albania. That is a project Croatia would like to put on the PCI list in the next period of time, and we expect support of all our neighbors to that.
If we are talking about security of supply, the major issue for us now, in our strategy is to solve this from the side of gas supplies to Poland. And just to say it briefly, we are on a good way to have it achieved by 2022. We are building a pipeline connecting Poland with Norwegian shelf. We do have operational LNG terminal on Baltic Sea, which is being expanded by 50%, and it will be ready by 21. And we are going to have a floating terminal regasification unit in Gdańsk by 2024-25. And this will give us 100% opportunity to have supplies from different sources, different producers, by different routes, and will have enough infrastructure environment to start a competitive gas market in Poland. The question of energy transition in Poland is complicated, of course, because if you've seen, on your first map, probably, or second map, 80% of energy in Poland is based on coal, whether hard coal or lignite. 25 years ago, we used to have almost 100% of our energy based on coal. So we are going down with the coal in the mix. But anyway, we are going to stay on coal for next decades because we do have our own energy source, which is coal. And for security reasons and also for economic reasons, we are not going to abandon it. This is why we are expanding this infrastructure, gas infrastructure I mentioned, and this is why we are looking for another non-emission reliable source, which is nuclear. And in Poland, we are going to start 20 years nuclear program, and we'll have by 2040 not less than 6 gigawatts in nuclear. Why? Because this is reliable, this is safe these days, and this is base load energy source. So combining renewables balanced with gas generation and nuclear will have the average emission still having probably half of our generation on coal below European standards. This is our strategy, and this is what we are going to do.
And we want to support, we will have, I think, 2 LNG terminals in Germany. We think the demand is there. And we always say to our US colleagues, LNG is welcome in Europe, it is welcome in Germany. Mr. Naimski has mentioned the positive impact it has had in Poland. We have had the same in the Baltics, where it has helped to drive prices down, to reduce dependency. But we also say to the US, LNG has to be market-driven. What we don't want, and let me say that also very clearly, is that LNG is helped by US sanctions. We totally reject sanctions against the energy relationship with Russia. Nord Stream 2 was mentioned, again with false information that it is a single connection. It is not a single connection, it's an additional connection. There is a serious and real demand for additional gas. So I think we really have to stick here to the facts. But let me say, LNG is welcome. Sanctions are rejected. We want to develop our energy relations with Russia the way we think it is necessary and it is good for Germany. And Russia is not the only source of supply. That is false. Russia is below 40% of Germany's gas supply. We have Norway, we have the Netherlands, but the Netherlands will reduce. Germany's own production will reduce. So there is a definite need for more diversification.
if it could be, my last intervention. So one remark, about projects which could be in the interest of one European country and not necessarily for the neighbor or neighbors. I am talking about second Nord Stream. Second Nord Stream is good for Germany, is good for Russia. Actually, second Nord Stream 55 BCM of gas will be sent not to Germany, but through Germany down to the southern Europe and Balkans. And this will saturate the region with the gas coming once again from one supplier. This is against the market, this is against solidarity, and you see, this is why we in Poland, we have completely different strategy.
Thanks. I think Mr. Naimski summarized this very well. If I can just add something on top of that, this initiative, I believe, comes out of gas initiative, which was very relevant some years ago. It is still, but still perhaps a little bit less nowadays. And it came out of two languages which we are speaking in Europe. One is language of liquid gas markets, and one is language of countries with low liquidity, which I tried to show on a map. And countries with high liquidity have completely different concerns and problems than countries with low liquidity, where, of course, sometimes it happens. I use this joke quite often. Russian gas is always more expensive in the closest countries. More it goes towards west, cheaper it is. If it would go to New York, it would be for free.
Dan Fried, no longer with the U.S. administration, so I can be a little more frank. My answer to your question about the added value of 3 Cs is that it brings together the United States, the countries of this region, Germany, and the European Commission in a way that might not be possible, including for my own government, if it weren't for this forum. All right, so that is considerable value added. The purpose then in the energy portion is to do what Piotr Naimski was talking about, which is help support alternatives to reduce Russian gas leverage over Europe. If I can be blunt, that's not the only purpose, but that is one of the purposes, and much progress has been made thanks to the European Union. And as for Miguel Berger, we have different views about Nord Stream. I get that. But as we're approaching the issue, as you said, let's remember certain facts. It is not true that sanctions are off limits with respect to Europe's energy relationship with Russia. We've already crossed that line. The United States and Europe together imposed sanctions on Russian energy production. I know because I was the US negotiator and we talked about it. So you know as well as I do. We've crossed that line. Now, having said that, I'm not a believer in sanctions targeting Nord Stream 2. But we have crossed the line of sanctions on Russian energy after their invasion of Ukraine. And what I would love to see is a way to, we're not going to come to a common position, Miguel, on Nord Stream 2, but I would love to see Germany coming all in the 3 Cs initiative to work on common projects such as those that Piotr Naimski was mentioning, in cooperation with the European Commission, and then we can agree, best case we agree to disagree on Nord Stream 2. I will continue to hate it, you will continue to defend it, but we will both work, the United States, Germany, the European Commission, Poland can work to mitigate its strategic downsides and whatever they are. So that's my answer to your question, and I put it bluntly and brutally because I can do so, not being in the U.S. government after 40 years.
Currently, the train journey from Tallinn to Constanta takes about 3.5 days. The same distance from Gothenburg to Barcelona is covered in 1 day by train. Whereas the same journey by road is about 8 hours shorter than it would be the case in our part of Europe. These facts have an impact not only on the comfort of travel and tourism, but also, above all, on economic and social relations. If we want to tighten and intensify them, we must have a coherent investment policy in the 3 Seas region. That is, on that will overcome all transportation gaps. These are challenges of a community nature. We cannot handle them acting on our own. However, we can get closer to realization through teamwork. A team playing fair and accordingly to the framework of market rules. It will always be a positive sum game. This is the logic of the 3 Seas initiative cooperation.
After the initial exploration in Bucharest last year, we are forming the fund of the initiative, which means that it has become a true practical initiative. This is a platform for specific cooperation. We don't have a seat, we don't have secretariat, we don't waste money on business space and resources. What we do is we communicate together and we use the modern ways of communication in order to keep initiative growing, and I think that so far, as we can see today in Slovenia, we've been very successful.
For many decades, Bulgaria has been a gas transition country. We have small consumption, about 3 billion cubic meters, and all rest is transiting gas coming from Russia down to Turkey and Greece. And our ambition is to change that situation, to transform our capacity from pure transit into gas distribution center, to work for diversification and for providing security of energy supply. We have been improving and modernizing and enlarging the capacity of our national gas transitioning network. We have been working on building interconnectors with all our neighbors. We have done and we have finished our interconnector with Romania. We have just started the gas interconnector with Greece. We will start the gas interconnector with Serbia. And what is the result? We have also working on, and we have finished our work for reverse capacity of those pipes we have. As a result, a week ago, we have contracted for the first time LNG from the United States, from the LNG terminal in Greece. The quantity is small, but the price is better than the pipeline gas we have so far, which means there is a huge potential in front of us. Once we have this necessary infrastructure laid down, once we have all the arrangements about those distribution centers, I'm sure we will have much better security, we will have diversification, we will have almost unlimited choices to go forward in much, much better requirement.
And now the question is which countries will belong to the winners and which countries will belong to the losers of this new world order. And I really do believe that the answer to this question depends on who is able to carry out decisions and policies based on common sense when it comes to economy and security, and who are able to make quick decisions. And in this regard, the recent years have proved that Central Europe is and will be the growth engine of the European continent. Although there's no free lunch, so it didn't come out of scratch. We have lower taxes here in Central Europe compared to the Western European friends of ours. The budgetary and fiscal discipline is, let's say, stricter here than in other parts of the continent. And we have made our decisions to guarantee security to our own citizens. So I think that we Central Europeans have proved that the less hypocrisy, the less political correctness, and the less double standards there are, the better achievement we can perform. Border crossing infrastructure, when it comes to railroads and roads, is absolutely in the focus of ours. Just like energy, where diversification is the magic word, but until it remains a word, it's a little bit challenging, especially for Hungary, which is in a unique situation, in a landlocked situation, in the heart of this cooperation. We are a country which still does not have any kind of access to LNG because of lack of infrastructure, and we are a country which hardly has any access to non-Russian gas because of lack of infrastructure. So it depends on all of us, on countries participating in this cooperation, whether we will be able to change this situation of ours. If we cannot change that infrastructural situation, then my country will be in a position again to engage in a long-term cooperation with Russia when it comes to gas supply. So we have very nice plans on the tables. We have very nice promises, which definitely sound very nice, about offshore gas fields to be explored in the region, about LNG ports to be built in the region, but heating flats and operating an economy cannot be based on only promises and plans, but on actions. So we attach a great significance to this cooperation, and we are definitely thankful to the founding fathers and to the founding mothers of this organization, because we really do expect that with this cooperation we will be able to transform words when it comes to energy diversification into actions. I can report to you, Madam and Mr. Presidents, that we have made our homeworks. We have the infrastructure to the border on our side, and really expect this cooperation to make these plans come into reality. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Good morning, Angelika Jarosławska-Sapiecha. I'm coming from Poland. I'm Poland 3.0 program coordinator. I have a question. Strong and stable Ukraine and strong intermarium means safety of this part of the world. Isn't it the highest time to invite Ukraine to those conversations, to invite Ukraine to the cooperation with the Free Seas Initiative?
As the host of this summit, I would be frank with you, by saying that we did consider this option to invite the new Ukrainian president to come, but we then decided that maybe it's time to invite him next year. So I don't know if Kersti will give us some explanation on that subject.
Actually, I think that, as already stressed here, we have an informal forum of Free Seas Initiative, and it's really something where Ukraine and Georgia and other Eastern partners are concerned, where I would stick to the formal framework of Eastern Partnership and really look how we can make Eastern Partnership function and stronger. And the reason why I believe Eastern Partnership is because it's the whole EU initiative, and I don't want to take the responsibility of developing and helping our Eastern partners and helping to solve their problems that much only into this region or on the shoulders of people in this region. On the other hand, I know that all countries here are actively supporting reform in Ukraine and other Eastern Partnership countries. We are the strong proponent of not excluding these countries from the discussion on the EU enlargement, and we will continue to provide our support to Ukraine and Georgia in various formats and bilateral meetings with all the world leaders. So we strongly stand up for our Eastern partners, but definitely I prefer formal frameworks for that.
Mr. Perry.
Let me just add to this that
In the audience here is the United States Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland. And Ambassador Sondland had President Zelensky in Brussels yesterday. Matter of fact, I think it was his first trip out of the country since he was inaugurated. So the idea that he would be here might be a little premature from the standpoint of his travel schedule. But here's what I will tell you, that not only is the United States, but the men and women on this stage are engaged with Ukraine in various and sundry ways to help that country to be stabilized economically and otherwise, because I'm not sure there is a more important message to send, not just in this region and through Europe, but around the world, that as a member of this region and the invasion that occurred there, and for us not to support Ukraine in every reasonable, feasible way that we can is a irresponsible act. And that the United States, the members of the 3 Cs, are going to be participating in a host of different ways to make sure that European countries, whether they belong to 3 Cs or otherwise, know that we are going to stand together and not allow for anyone to coerce another country, particularly using energy as a weapon. It will not stand.
Our projects and our objectives are long-term. This second business forum was an excellent opportunity for business talks. High officials and businessmen convened in the forum from the initiative member states, but other partner states as well. And I'm sure that this business forum will help improve cross-border investments. Finally, I would like to remind you of the words of President Trump from our 2017 Warsaw meeting. Quote, "The 3 Cs initiative will not only empower your people to prosper, but it will ensure that your nations remain sovereign, secure, and free from foreign pressure and coercion."
We are striving at building interconnectors, and in this particular context, we are stressing the Polish LNG terminal in Świnoujście. We are connecting it also with the LNG terminal in Krk, in the island of Krk in Croatia. These terminals are supposed to provide a link between the north of Europe and the south of Europe in terms of gas and in terms of transmission opportunities. This also provides an opportunity to support each other if such a need arises as far as energy security is concerned. And first and foremost, this provides gas supplies and provides alternatives. In other words, it opens up opportunities to diversify the deliveries of this raw material to our markets. And this is a thing of crucial importance.
The summit and business forum that was hosted in Romania in 2018 were the point of political and conceptual maturity of the initiative. And at the same time, it's moving towards pragmatic developments. On that occasion, we agreed on important instruments to further the initiative. The list of priority projects for interconnectivity in transports, energy, and digital, the network of chambers of commerce and industry in the region, and the creation of the initiative's investment forum. Today, I saw with great satisfaction that these instruments are functional. Thus, the progress report on the implementation of the projects on the list in Bucharest sees progress in an important number of these projects. The business forum of the initiative, whose first edition was last year in Bucharest, continues to be an important component of our summit, annual summit. The first meeting of the network of chambers of commerce in the region was successfully organized in the margin of today's business forum, and the investment fund of the initiative has become operational. I welcome the fact that my country, via Exim Bank, is a participant in this initiative, and I encourage other interested partners to join the initiative.
From the French news agency, I'm going to speak in English, I'm sorry. Mr. Juncker, can I ask you, please, would you comment this summit, and especially in light of the fact that some countries that could be also included are not present, do you think this initiative could in fact widen the gap between the so-called two-speed EU countries?
Yes, I don't think that this initiative will widen the gap between different parts of Europe. It will close the gap between different parts of Europe, because this is about interconnectivity, this is about the living conditions which will be improved after different projects will have been implemented. I do think that others should be around the table. I was listening carefully to my good friend Colinda when she was saying that she hopes that others will join, and both did say exactly the same in our meeting.
Mr. Juncker, we are interested in the process ahead, which is new European Commission. Talks have started. You say that our president is your dear friend, and considering that in the last 10 years we see an increase in the number of women in presidential roles, in the prime ministerial roles, and when it comes to negotiations about the new president of the European Commission, is there a possibility that you are replaced or succeeded by a woman in your position of the President of the European Commission?
Listen, I will not be member of the next Commission, so I will not be involved. But I would like to see more women in the Commission. When I was starting with the Commission, there was only one woman among the proposers. I finally managed to get the number to 9, which is still not enough, because many women graduate from universities, and there are only 9 women in the commissions. I don't think that we can hope in a very short, in a very near future, to see a woman at the head of the commission.
Thank you very much also for the declaration that was made yesterday by the President of Estonia, Mrs. Kersti Kaljulaid, that the next 3Cs summit in 1 year time at the level of heads of state and government will take place precisely in Estonia. Thank you very much for that. And in a nutshell, see you, ladies and gentlemen, there where Madam President will choose the venue. It might be Tallinn or another place in Estonia where we are going to meet next year at the level of presidents. And